Hey there, welcome to episode 53 of Duke's Apocalypse Kitchen.
Is it 53 or 54?
54? 54! Welcome to
I
episode
feel like we
54.
just had a conversation
Didn't
about
we?
that it was 54. Yeah.
Okay, 54. Molasses cookies. Here we go. I have two baking tips to show you guys today, which is pretty cool, I think, anyway. When you bake cookies, when you bake anything, the process is just as important as the ingredients. So the order in which I do things really help the cookies come out really nice and light and soft and well combined and all the things. So this is a cookie dough that has a lot of butter. It's a cup and a half of butter.
I was going to say that is a boatload of butter there.
I'm not against it, but it does. It calls for softened butter, which you would leave out like a whole day, and I didn't do that. And I don't really need to because I'm going to cream the butter, which means I'm going to put it in the mixer with the paddle on and mix it by itself, and we're going to beat it into submission, which if you knew me at all, you would know that that's my preferred way. So, and then after we soften the butter in the mixer, we're going to scrape down the sides and then add our sugar. So we have a cup and a half of butter going in the mixer by itself. And then when that's all nice and creamy, I'm going to scrape down the sides. It's 1 cup of white sugar granulated and then 1 cup of brown sugar packed. And it looks like a lot, but those are the same. I don't know. So then we're going to cream the sugar into the butter. And that's what it's called, creaming the butter and sugar. I'm not going to do any of this on camera because this sucker makes a terrible noise on camera. So
And who wants to wait through all that?
I know. You're welcome. I'm not doing that to you. So chill out. See you in a minute. I'm going to get this stuff creamy.
All right.
Okay, so I've just creamed the butter. It's now nice and soft. Scraped it once. Put it on again. I've scraped the sides again. 1 cup of granulated sugar going in. A cup of brown sugar going in. And now I'm going to do the same thing again, creaming the butter and sugar together.
We'll be back.
See ya. Okay, so we have creamed the butter and brown sugar and granulated sugar together. I scraped down the sides. At this point, we can add our 2 eggs in. 2 eggs. I'm going to crack them into a separate bowl, not just straight into the dish so that there are no shells. And I make sure our eggs are looking good, smelling good, all the things. 2 eggs in. Notice these are all of our wet ingredients. Butter is a wet ingredient. Sugars are both a wet ingredient. The eggs are a wet ingredient.
That's still blowing my mind that sugar is a wet ingredient.
The dry ingredient, the flour, is sitting over here waiting for its turn patiently.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna mix this up. Okay, so creamed the sugar and the eggs and the butter all together. Our wet ingredients are ready to go. Now we're gonna start working with our dry ingredients. I can get these bowls out of the way. That one in there. This one away.
Have you already put the molasses in?
Not yet.
Okay.
This is 4.5 cups of sugar, or cup of flour. 4.5 cups. We need 3 teaspoons? 4 teaspoons of baking soda, which we keep in this unmarked jar with white powder.
We're waiting for the authorities to arrive.
So, yes.
And you said that was baking powder?
Baking soda.
Baking soda.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. We also need a teaspoon of salt. Now's a good time to put that in too. Okay, now, pastry trick number 1 is that we are going to fluff our baking soda throughout our flour. This does a couple things. It aerates our flour, making it lighter. If you're making a cake, this is very important. And it gets that baking soda evenly distributed throughout. You don't want that to stay all in one corner and avoid the rest of the party. You want it to get out there. A little bit all over the place.
I guess I don't understand the difference between baking powder and baking soda, but I'm going to imagine it's chemistry.
It is chemistry. Baking powder contains cornstarch. And the cornstarch slows the baking soda reaction down. So it's baking soda and cornstarch. Baking soda reacts quickly in the baking process. Baking powder reacts a little slower. So I always love recipes that include both because you get a little bit of rise at the beginning, and then when it starts to fall, you get the baking powder rise at the end. So it ensures that you're going to have light and fluffy things. This recipe doesn't call for that. You know. Okay, so we are going to set this aside. We have all of our dry ingredients nice and fluffy. We're going to go on to trick number 2. Once I put the lid on my unmarked white powder. Okay, now it calls for some molasses, which is super sticky, and a 1/2 cup. Oh, I knew I needed you. You're sitting there. Okay, 1/2 cup. Now, this is super sticky, and I want it to come out of here pretty easily. So I'm going to take my cooking spray and spray the cup. Just a little.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we pour this in,
So I know this is going to sound weird, but I always feel like molasses has a very brown flavor in that it's like savory, not particularly sweet.
yeah. Well, maybe that's why there's 2 extra cups of sugar in here. Now when we pour this into our mixture, it slides straight out of the cup.
Okay.
Super nice and fast. You don't have to scrape it. Although I want all of it in there. So get in there. There. There, see? Boop.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give this a quick spin, and then we're gonna put the flour in.
We'll be back.
See ya.
You're on.
Okay, so now we're going to spice the cookies, and molasses cookies typically call for ginger, clove, and cinnamon. What else was in there? Nutmeg. And a lot of those things are in pie spice, pumpkin pie spice. I happen to have some in the drawer, and yep, it listed all of those things. I'm like, that works for me. I can use 3 teaspoons of this instead of a teaspoon of each, the ginger, nutmeg, and cloves. So I'm just going to use 3 teaspoons of this. I'm also going to use just a handful, I didn't even measure this, of some crystallized ginger that I chopped up. I also sprayed my knife with the cooking spray before chopping this, and it didn't stick to the knife nearly as bad as it would if it was dry. It still does a little, but it's a lot easier. And it's a lot easier to clean the knife when I'm done. All of these spices are totally negotiable in your own batch of cookies. If you don't like cinnamon, if you don't like ginger, whatever, by all means, leave it out. You have a really good cookie waiting to happen right here. But I'm going to put these in the dry stuff,
Okay.
not in the mix.
I like the idea of using the pie spice because that's one that I'll end up buying and then like never using, except for that once
Yeah,
for whatever reason that I bought it for.
and it's all there, mixed together for you. So once again with our spoon, I'm going to stir that around and incorporate all those spices throughout the flour. Oops. Get another jump. Take my crystallized ginger. I'll toss that in there too.
Does it help having it in with the flour? Like, does that make it so it
keeps
doesn't
it-
go to the bottom of the cookie?
Yeah, it keeps it from sinking to the bottom when we put it in the mix, and it keeps it from ending up in half of the cookies and not in any of the others. So now, this is not a tricky part, but just something we want to pay attention to. We don't want to mix the flour in for very long in here because we'll make very tough cookies. And I'm the only tough cookie in this kitchen, let's be clear. So what I want to do is put this in a cup and a half or so at a time, but I only want it to just as soon as it incorporates, I'm going to stop the mixer and do it again. Okay?
Okay.
So it's going to take like 4 times of starting and stopping the mixer, and as soon as it's incorporated, we're stopping.
Okay.
Tender cookies only. All right.
We'll be back.
Okay, we're back. I mixed this just enough so that it all got incorporated, turned a nice dark brown, and I'm going to wrap it in some plastic wrap. I'll show you how I do that. And we are going to let it rest in the refrigerator for 2 hours. Now, really, we're not doing that. Putting it in the freezer because we got to do this faster. But you need to rest this dough for 2 hours, and then you'll be able to slice it, roll in a ball, roll it in sugar, and bake. So we are going to roll it in some plastic.
So it's almost like you're going to make a roll of cookie dough that you then, instead of cutting it out.
You can slice them, but since these spread, we're going to roll them into a ball.
Okay.
So we're going to scrape this.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think it would be so molassesy.
Yeah, I know, right? It smells amazing, by the way. Oops.
I can't smell it over here.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I was expecting, you know, kind of the pale cookie dough. I didn't realize it was going to be like that's almost like the color of a ginger snap.
Yeah. These are a lot like ginger snaps, except they're molasses, and they are going to be more tender. Okay, so we're gonna go to time lapse to do this because it's gonna take about a minute.
Okay.
So,
You ready?
okay, we are back. I wrapped both of these packages in plastic and I used the end of my plastic wrap. So I put all the rest of the dough into one, where I would prefer to have broken these into two. So you need to chill this for 2 hours. A couple of things are happening. If you let your butter rest to room temperature and get super soft, that's one of the reasons why you need 2 hours in the cooler, because they need that to get firm so that our cookies don't spread way too much. I didn't do that. I beat the butter up cold, so mine's not as warm as yours might be. Also, you're putting it in the cooler to chill and rest for a little bit so that the flour and all of the liquid that we did put in there has a chance to absorb and become one more a cohesive dough. Right now it's not very cohesive. I can see some bits of flour in there that are not mixed up. Once we let it rest in the cooler, it's going to become all one chunk and it'll make a nicer, more even cookie. So I'm going to do that for a little bit. I'm going to put this one just in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to take it out and we're going to bake them off.
Awesome.
See you in a minute. All right, it's bake time. This little batch of dough went in the freezer for 15 minutes, and it's nice and chilled, just like how I wanted it. And I have a little bowl of sugar, and this thing is called a disher. You can use a spoon and roll a ball that's just about the size of an inch across. That works too. I just happen to have that guy.
And the idea is you make just a little round ball of a cookie.
Yeah. So we're making round balls. Boop. Like this. Putting sugar on it.
Oh, but one side's flat. So
Yeah.
it's perfect.
That's why I like the disher.
Okay.
But now I'm also only going to do 6 on this tray that size, because they are going to spread. I'm not going to crowd this pan. Just like that.
Interesting. I had no idea this is how you would do it.
Mm-hmm. That's how we do cookies in the restaurant.
Is
Now,
it?
you keep this dough in your fridge for up to a week,
Okay.
and just bake on the fly. Bake the cookies fresh every day. Bake a couple cookies.
You would impress everybody.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, should we have some more cookies? I can make that happen in, how long does it take to bake them?
8 to 10 minutes, and we will get into that as soon as we can. But like if you live by yourself or it's just 2 of you, you can keep the dough in the fridge, or you can put it in even smaller portions and freeze a bunch of it, and then you can have cookies. Future cookies. Who doesn't want future cookies?
Somebody who wants to eat
It's cookie
current
insurance.
cookies. Cookie insurance. You know what? I feel like it's for pessimists.
All right, we got 1 tray.
And how hot is your oven now?
350.
All right.
Standard baking temperature.
Okay.
All right, see you
We'll be
in
back.
8 to 10. Okay, we are back. The timer just went off. I did put them in for the extra 2 minutes, so we went all the way to 10 minutes, because my oven tends to be a little bit slow, especially if it hasn't been on all day. And they just didn't seem like they spread out very much. I'm like, I can give you guys the extra 2 minutes. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. So I'm gonna pull them out now. Let's see what we got.
And when you pull them out, tell me how you know that they're done.
So typically, like if this was a peanut butter cookie or a chocolate chip cookie, what you're looking for, there'd be a ever shrinking dot in the center of something that looks wet. The dough looks wet. As it bakes, the liquid is evaporating out of the cookie, and that dot gets smaller and smaller. And the minute that looks dry, your cookie is done.
Okay.
Molasses cookies are a little bit different because they're supposed to be soft. So a soft cookie is going to have in these cracks here is still appearing a little bit wet. That's fine. It's also, we're not getting that circle of wetness on the top because we rolled them in sugar and threw them in the oven right away. So it's a little bit harder. We're just going to go with the time and then see what we got. This is one, if you really don't know, if you're afraid of having an underbaked cookie, just bake off the first sheet with maybe 2 or 3 cookies on it for 8 or 10 minutes and see what you got when that cools off before you invest the whole rest of the batch in on that. Getting a little too hot to hold, so I'm going to set that down. I'm going to hold a cold beer with that hand. Yay!
Are we going to try these molasses cookies?
We are, but I'm not a glutton for pain, so I'm going to wait a couple minutes till they're not 350 degrees. Patricia!
I'm just saying that we should eat them.
So after I get home from taking her to the ER for a 3rd-degree burn on her tongue, I'm going to have a cookie. Thanks for joining us today, and this was fun. See you tomorrow for episode like 55, whatever that is.
Something ridiculous.
It'll be something. See ya.
Bye.